there, my name is Rachel Burdis. I'm the Inward Investment Manager at Invest Northeast, and we support companies to relocate and expand into the region. And now for this session, I'm joined by Steve Corhey of the National Innovation Centre for Data, which is based in Newcastle in the Northeast. And we're going to discuss the strong relationship that the region has to data science and data analytics, and how it's a key focus for businesses within the region looking to digitalise or further make use of that data and exploit it for their own value. So Steve's going to now tell us a bit more about the importance of data and why base yourselves in the Northeast. So Steve, if you can maybe tell me a bit more about your role, your title and your background, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rachel. So my name's Steve Corhey, and I'm the director of the new National Innovation Centre for Data in Newcastle. And my own background is I was a software developer and consultant, did about 10 years research at a university, at Newcastle University, span out a company, which we then sold to Hewlett Packard, bought it back, and then sold it to Red Hat. And then I decided I needed a real job, and I'm now working for the university, helping them with business engagement.
Perfect. And I guess we talk about data a lot, and obviously you'll hear it from businesses. They probably understand what it is and they understand that it's important, but can you maybe tell us a bit more as to why they should take action now?
Yeah, so the story I hear from executives in public and private sector organizations is they're drowning in data. So there's huge amounts of data coming into the organization from sensors and social media and software systems. And execs are aware that there's lots of insight they could get from that data, insight about how their organization is operating, but more importantly about their clients and their customers. And they're immensely frustrated by the fact that they can't get their hands on that insight. And the reason they can't is that given this quantity of data, you need specific skills to get access to that data, and those skills just aren't available to organizations right now.
Is it literally a case of there aren't enough people for those skills, and so that's what you're supporting as well?
Yeah, so the growth in the data coming into organizations has been exponential, and it will continue to be. And universities and education facilities haven't kept up to speed with the demand for those skills. So what it means is the few people that we produce with the right skills today get gobbled up by the big finance houses and the global vendors. And most organizations, even at a multinational level, will struggle to find that sort of talent.
Yeah, true. So tell me a bit more about the university's part in data and with NICD as well, and how there's this research, teaching, and engagement angle to it, isn't there?
The university has a group called Newcastle Data, who have been working in data for more than a decade. And the group does three things. It does research, it does teaching, and it does engagement. And on the research side, they pulled in about 100 million in research income over the last 10 years. They're ranked as world leading by the government in data science. On the teaching side, we have a Centre for Doctoral Training, 50 PhDs roughly coming through the system at any one time, working in scalable computing for big data. And we have a master's, and we have a strong focus at undergraduate level. So really quality teaching. We have a gold award for the government on our teaching as well. So great research, great teaching, but then also we have an engagement arm that actually tries to engage very actively with public and private sector organizations, not only to introduce them to the research and teaching we're doing, but to deliver real assistance to them, which is the National Innovation Centre for Data piece. And the idea is great research results in great teaching, produces great people who engage with organizations, and then those organizations, if we're doing this right, re-engage with our team to tell us what they need next from research and teaching, and so we drive an innovation cycle around.
Yeah, perfect. And I guess, so NICD then, how do companies engage with it? Is it something that you have to be based in the region for, or is it just something virtual? Is there a physical asset? Tell us a bit more about how it works.
So it's a National Innovation Centre for Data, so we're set up to assist organisations, public or private sector organisations across the UK. Initially quite a strong Northeast focus, but actually we are entirely national. And at the moment, of course, everything we're doing is remote anyway. So what we do is we engage with organisations to work with them on collaborative projects that provide a return on investment for what they're doing, generate some IP, but above all, give them a new set of skills that they can take and scale out inside their own organization. So The engagement process is actually very lightweight. It's very simple. The early stages are completely free whilst we explore a problem with an organization. And then we basically offer subsidized help on these projects after that.
So it's about them kind of understanding the value that they get back, and I guess working with them on a project, but ultimately setting them up to be able to do this themselves going forward as well, isn't it? It's leaving that legacy and supporting them to create a team.
That's entirely right. So we don't go in, if you deal with a consultant on data, tends to be you'll present a problem to them. They will give you what is essentially a black box solution that will solve your immediate problem. But the next time you need to do something slightly different, you have to go back to them, hand more money over, and therefore proceed in that way. We go in and try to give you the skills that mean after we've engaged with you, similar problems you can cater for yourself. And that means you can think innovatively about what you can do with your data, how to slice and dice it, how to make sense of it, and then how to build products and services relating to that data.
Okay, great. And how is it different, I guess, to anything that's come before or anything else that exists in the UK? Why is NICD special, I guess?
So it's relatively unique as a means of engaging with organizations from a university. Most universities focus very strongly on research and on teaching. And our experience has been that most organizations don't have the timescales in mind when they first deal with the university, just sit and wait for 5 or 10 years for research. So what we wanted to do was find a way of engaging with them and giving them immediate short-term value, because that way you begin to build a relationship. Then the organization, once they're engaged, then they start talking to you about the talent pipeline. Then they start talking to you about research. And then it creates a much deeper relationship between the organization and the university. So from an academic point of view, we think it's fairly unique. There are other organizations offering you consultancy that will assist you in data, but their focus is not on the transfer of skills to make you self-sufficient. In fact, quite the contrary, they'd rather you were much more bought into their processes and their services.
Okay, that makes sense. And I guess to give people a wider picture of the region now, NICD is sat within Helix. Helix is 2 science parks within the Northeast. Can you tell me a bit more about what's on Helix, the purpose of it, and again, just why it's so unique to the UK and it's a real asset?
So Helix is one of the best kept secrets in the UK. It's a £350 million development on a 24-acre site with a strong, in fact, what we're really doing is we're building a mini smart city in the middle of Newcastle. And that's being developed by the council, the university, and Legal in General. So we're building academic properties, we're building commercial properties and residential properties. And from a data perspective, they're all full of sensors, and the spaces between the buildings are full of sensors. So we can monitor what's happening on the site, gather that data together, and then do research, but also deliver that information to businesses who can then come on the site and explore the potential for smart city products and services around areas like energy, transport, aging, health, and so on.
And you mentioned their businesses coming onto the site. Can you maybe give us some case studies of when you've worked with businesses in the region to support them through exploitation of the data?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of examples. So the one is a company called AkzoNobel, and they are, like many organizations, looking to provide a service rather than a set of products. So what they want to do is offer paint as a service. So the idea is for shipping companies, for example, rather than selling them tins of coatings and paint, they would offer them a service that would keep the ship free of any fouling and marine animals and so on, because that costs a fortune in terms of drag on a ship. So to do that, they have to be able to understand the condition of the ships, what routes they're going on, how likely they are to need repainting, because that's a very expensive operation. And that involves you processing huge amounts of data. And they didn't have the skills in-house to be able to do that. So we engaged with them to help them explore that idea of paint as a service, but also to upskill their people so they would then long-term be able to support that concept going forward. So AkzoNobel, as part of that relationship, then have ended up putting some of their people through our master's course, engaging with our students on internships and projects, working with us on further projects, sponsoring students. And now they've actually moved a team into our building to be as close as possible with us in order to continue that process going forward. So that's one example. That's at one end. Another end of the spectrum is a company called Connected Energy, who are doing really interesting things with secondhand batteries from cars. They're putting them all inside big containers and making them huge batteries to store energy for a site, for failover, or for saving energy when it's cheap and utilizing it when it's expensive. And each of these batteries is only really designed to be run on a car until the car's done, and then they're thrown away. But so now they're using them in conditions where they weren't really originally designed to be run. And there are lots of these batteries, lots of different electrical characteristics. We've helped them understand how these huge batteries are now operating so as to make them as efficient as possible. But more importantly, pass the skills into the organization so they can do it for themselves. And certainly one of the reasons why they're on the Helix site is because they have this continuing and ongoing access to our skills, but also to a talent pipeline that they'll be able to engage as they grow.
Of course, and I guess that's the key point. It might be a national centre, but there's certainly benefits to businesses relocating and moving into the northeast. Can you tell us a bit more about maybe some companies that have recently invested into the region?
Sure. So from the point of view of our delivery of our services, we will deliver our services anywhere nationally. So the projects that we can run, you can run anywhere. But there are real advantages in being side by side with us. You know, there's a better relationship. You can transfer more knowledge if you're actually working face to face. That's just natural. But additionally, because you're with us side by side, you're getting access to the research community that we work with and this fantastic talent pipeline of engineering staff coming out of the university who want to live in the northeast, but because there aren't the jobs here, often have to move away. So there's this resource, untapped resource. So we've had a couple of success stories recently about people coming onto our site in order to be engaged with the ecosystem. There are a number of consultancies that are moving in because they've got a data focus and want to build their data business. So one example is iCademy, who have moved an office here from Scotland. Another one is DTG, Digital Technology Group. Capita have taken an office in our space. So there's a lot of organizations clustering around National Innovation Centre for Data, our building and the site, which is becoming something of an ecosystem around data.
Yeah. And I guess we are working in and living in a virtual world still at the moment, but there are still things happening, aren't there? The building's open at the moment. You're looking at events, you have event space, you're thinking about maybe hybrid events as well, because some things can never really replace, as you say, that face-to-face contact, and some things you can continue on digitally.
Yeah, so the building itself is a fantastic asset. So it's a £50 million building on this £350 million site. And we want to make it the digital centre for the Northeast, the place where people will automatically go for digital events. The ideal would be you're in town on a Thursday evening, which is the evening where, let's say, all the SMEs get together, and you just wander into the building and see what's happening. So it becomes a regular drop-in spot. But also the building, because of its size and because of the variety of spaces that we have, can be used for organizations who want to run social events of some form or hybrid events that involve online presence and physical presence. And we think that might well be a very interesting way of working in the future, because lots of organizations are going to be increasingly working from home, even post-COVID, if there ever is such a thing as post-COVID. They'll want to work in a much more flexible way, but they still have the need to get together face to face, even if socially distanced. And the building will be a great place for people to do that.
So, perfect. Brilliant. Well, I guess that's pretty much everything. But maybe if I could just ask for your one final reason as to why companies should look to move into the region. What would you say is a top reason for them to base themselves here?
So I'll cheat and give you two reasons. Okay. One is that the quality of life up here is fantastic. If you're a digital person, whether you're young or have a young family or older, quality of life's amazing. Okay, wages are lower here than they would be in London, but you have more money in your pocket. Beautiful countryside, lovely city. It's a fantastic environment, and it needs to be seen to be appreciated. That's one reason. The second is, if you're a business who is growing and for whom data is an important feature and a growing aspect of your business, then being in a place where there is an ecosystem, some deep expertise combined with this fantastic talent pipeline, then would be a fantastic place to base your business.
Perfect. Brilliant. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully we've given a lot of people food for thought about why consider the Northeast.
Pleasure, Rachel.
Thanks.
Cheers.